Hi, everyone. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes for anyone else that's going to be joining before we get started, so please bear with us. Okay, so people are still going to be joining as we get going, but welcome to this fireside chat where we're going to be discussing the topic of blending physical and digital commerce for the post-pandemic holiday season. And we've got some amazing guests joining us today, but before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar is going to be recorded, so we'll share the recording in a follow-up email afterwards. You can also submit questions at any time. So we're going to do our very best to answer as many as possible at the end of the discussion. So please do send them over. The modules on your screen you're looking at, they're fully customizable. So you can move or resize them however you like. And please make sure the audio on your computer is turned up so you can hear us well. So I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Tom Lyons, the Strategic Accounts Director at Movable Ink. And if you haven't heard of Movable Ink, we're a personalization and automation software for the enterprise. So we work with over 750 brands globally. And one of the biggest sectors we work in is with retail and e-commerce. And as a business, we aim to solve one of the biggest challenges that these brands face, which is content personalization at scale. So we know that brands have great tools for using data to know exactly what they should be putting in front of each and every customer. We also know that customers don't experience the data that you have on them. They experience content. And to create thousands or even millions of variations of content is a real challenge. And that's where Movable Ink comes in. So what we do is we power automated and data-driven personalized content across key digital channels to bring that data to life. Our content is always contextually relevant, behavior-led, and customer data focused. So you'll learn more about this as we continue. But before we do, a really important part of our business at Movable Ink is all of the fantastic partners that we work with. And today we are joined by Lindsay Maron from one of our favorite partners, Wunderkind. So Lindsay, thank you for joining. And would you mind introducing Wunderkind and tell us a bit about your role?
Absolutely. Thank you for introducing me. Happy to be here with you and Emily. So my name is Lindsay Maron. I'm a Senior Manager of Client Partnerships for our EMEA accounts at Wunderkind. So I work directly with clients like Emily at Clarins to ensure that we're seeing success in our program and that we're hitting our revenue growth goals that really anchor all of our partnerships. So to take a little bit of a step back, Wunderkind is a performance marketing channel that delivers one-to-one messages at an unprecedented scale without relying on cookies. We work with hundreds of e-commerce and retail clients across various verticals in the US and EMEA regions to drive additional revenue through personalized and retargeted messages. So really, our identification technology is at the core of our product, and it's what allows us to identify users across devices, across sessions, and outside of a cookie window. So it's how we're able to provide scalability and additional revenue. This technology is what fuels these three main components of our platform. We're world-class at driving the most amount of opt-ins across channels, whether it be email or mobile submits. Our ability to identify users is what powers our revenue scalability. So the more users that we can identify, the more triggered messages that we can send through email and text, and therefore the more revenue we can drive. And finally, our platform gives you the ability to send text on demand to drive revenue when you need it. And to Tom's point, a big part of what we do is partnering with other great vendors that focus on driving impactful results for clients as well and providing personalized experiences for the end user. So I will pass it back off to Thomas and we can kind of chat a little bit more with Emily about how we're doing all of this.
Great, thanks. We're excited to have you today. And yeah, the star of the show is Emilie Maunoury from Clarins. And I've personally worked with Emilie and Clarins for over 2 years, and it's been such a pleasure to work with such an amazing team and brand. So Emilie, welcome, and could you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your role and time within Clarins?
Sure. Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Lindsay. So my name is Emilie Maunoury. So as you can hear, I'm French. I've been in the digital business for over 15 years now, and I'm currently the digital e-commerce and CRM director in the UK for Clarins. I joined Clarins over 10 years ago, first in the global digital team. Then I spent 3 years with 2 CEOs as special advisor, and finally entered the UK leadership team in 2017. So long story with a well-beloved brand. So for those who don't know Clarins, because I take it for granted, but we're a French beauty brand founded back in 1954 and still privately owned by the founders' family. So this is what I do. When I joined the UK, I was lucky. It was a newly created role. And, when you come to a position with new, fresh eyes, you can do some interesting changes. And there are 2 things that impact the way we work today in the digital and CRM area. Is first, I've put everything CRM related under one roof, because we used to talk to our offline clients through marketing teams and talk to our online clients through e-commerce team. But actually, the client is the same. We're one brand, we've got one client, and we need to have one tone of voice and one way of communicating with them. So that was the first big change. Second big change is talking about data. I'm pretty sure most of you in the attendance will relate to that, but the fratricide war between on and offline sales. It's like, oh, e-com is taking my sales, it's my customer. It's like, oh, okay, hold on a second. So what we're doing digitally is we're supporting the brand sales wherever they happened. And by being more transparent about how we use the data and why we need data, and why our teams in store, our beauty advisors, need to capture that consumer data, has really made a difference, because they understood that if you've got the right age bracket, if you have the right gender, then the person is going to receive content that is relevant to her or to him, and has a higher propensity to go back to store, and therefore creating more footfall for the team. So I think, again, it's just explaining things has made a huge difference in stopping that kind of war, I would call it, because it was a bit complex at the beginning. So yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Emily, and it's great to have you with us. We haven't even started firing questions at you, and you've already given us some great insights there, so I appreciate that. So
yeah,
the spirit of
keep talking, Tom. So yeah, go for it.
No, it's cool. Like we're all here to learn, so really appreciate the chance to do that. And you mentioned data. I want to start with discussing data, because especially over the last couple of years, we've seen lots and lots of change when it comes to customer data. And we all know about an increase on certain restrictions, things like GDPR, cookies, and now, of course, all the changes with Apple and Google. And a lot of people have called this the end of third-party data as well. So you and your team have been working hard, pivoting around some of these challenges. So could you share some insights on how you've managed to do this, and what your feelings are on some of these changes that have come in?
Okay, I'll try to answer all of it. I think first, the GDPR curse was actually a blessing, because that was pretty much the first thing I had to face when I started. And it made me realize, when you have this huge database that out of the blue is really shrunk, that actually, something must have been wrong in the past. And you realize that your lead campaigns, acquisition campaigns, were actually really, really bad, because you were acquiring leads that were actually inactive for 3 years and then disappeared. So it made me think, realize like, okay, it's clean slate. How am I going to approach that? And this is the moment where I met the Wunderkind, so English version of Wunderkind, the Wunderkind guys, who really pitched me their ideas, where they're like, okay, you've got people visiting your site every day. You could qualify these guys as active prospects. They literally came to your brand by themselves, and you don't know who they are. Why don't you start there? Maybe if you could recognize them, opt them in, and then, reconnect and trigger communications to them, then it would be a good start. And I was like, this is brilliant. This is perfect, because then it's first-party data. I'm not relying on anyone else. Let's do this. And honestly, really good investment for the brand, because when I looked at the 2020 data, we managed to, and how big that year was, but we managed to identify 25% of our traffic. And I think it's 8% of these guys ended up buying. So you realize that actually just with your website and your incoming traffic, you've got a huge base of potential, prospects there. And you probably should start there.
I didn't get that.
So, Siri, yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, Emilie, you finished?
No, sorry. It's my Siri who just said something to add. So that's fine. Go for it.
Siri's joining us for the fireside chat. This is a unique situation. But yeah, no, thank you. Some really good points. And I think from my experience, whenever change has come in, people immediately panic and kind of start thinking, oh no, the world's going to end. But actually, some of these changes are for the benefit. And if you do things right, as you've just talked about, it just shows how actually you can turn that kind of stuff into a real positive, which I'm sure a lot of people on this session could relate to. So before we dive into how you're planning on approaching the upcoming holiday season, I wanted to take a step back, and all of the changes that we've just talked about, you can also add a pandemic on top of that. So I wanted to ask you how this pandemic has affected Clarins, both in-store and online. And I know you've touched on some of the traffic that you've gained, or identifying some of the traffic online, but interested to see the difference between, online and offline.
Yeah, two very different worlds. As the ecom director, best year of my life. Let's put it that way. Brilliant, exciting, great. But if I put my Clarins hat, despite the huge online business, we were first and foremost a retail and offline business, and the store closures had a very, very bad impact on our business, and the online effect didn't counteract or the offline loss. So unfortunately for the business, it was really not a great year. So the way, I think the exciting part, I like the way, like back in the day, like last year, we thought, oh my gosh, this increased traffic, like new customers everywhere. This is brilliant. We're doing a brilliant job. And then you realize, are these really new customers? We don't know them, but are they really new? And I think talking to some retailers out there, that we all face the same questions, like who did we really recruit during that time? Are these some offline customers that we just didn't know about, that we had not identified? They were not opted in, they were not in a base somewhere, and they're actually not new at all. So I think there's a lot of question of what really happened there with those customers, new, existing. So I think the whole pandemic kind of brought a huge chunk of omnichannel customers. But again, it will take time to identify all of them and making sure that our database is able to recognize them properly. That would be my view on it.
I can relate a lot to that. We deal with a lot of big retailers, and on one side they're having record-breaking traffic and online sales, but of course in-store has been the complete opposite, and actually identifying the percentage of customers that were purely in-store that have now transitioned, and then also how that's going to change. Hopefully when things are back to normal
Are they going to
soon.
stick? Are they going to go back? Are they going to remain omnichannel? No one knows.
Exactly.
But
exactly right.
Yeah. Sorry. Shoot.
No, it's good. I think that's exactly right. And I don't think anyone has the answer to that yet. So as things do start to get back to normal, it's going to be really interesting to see how many of those customers stay online or go back in store, and perhaps are they purchasing more because they're doing both. So it's going to be super interesting to see how that turns out. I'm going to pass over to Lindsay to give her a chance to talk and ask some questions. But just before I do, one last thing. I wanted to ask how you managed to shift the strategy to be more digital focused. So you touched on some of this already when we talked about, in-store versus online. But I wondered if there was any other key strategies that were a big success for you to become more digitally focused.
Definitely. I think we realized with this, huge traffic coming to our site that it's the moment you can't go wrong. Like you have to do as much as you can. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to transform these guys, to capture them, and to be efficient basically with what you have, because they can't go anywhere else. So they're on your site, make the most of it. And this is where we started the partnership between Movable Ink and Wunderkind, because we had great, acquisition. We had great personalization. It's like, how do you make the best of both worlds? And how can we actually merge the behavioral campaigns with more promotional items to make sure that we enhance, the experience for the user, but also increase our KPIs. So I think I've put a slide where I show what we kind of did there. So for the welcome series, for instance, we've put a slot on what's trending right now. So kind of surfing on the FOMO feel, because you're still in that discovery phase. Like, oh, I haven't seen that. Maybe I'll click. On the abandoned carts, it's your high potential of conversion. But by just, pulling the live promotion that is going on the site at the time, again, add a huge effect on conversion rate and click through it. I won't go through the results, you've got them on the page, but clearly we saw a huge uplift in both campaigns. So that was the perfect timing to really implement that, because we then benefited from all the good results when the traffic was at its highest. So yeah, I think my question for the future is, how can we roll this out, further? Which campaigns should we work on to that would benefit from this mutual, integration?
Mm-hmm. It is really interesting to see how you can marry those two things. And I would like to shift gears a little bit and talk to you a bit more about the upcoming holiday season. I think we all know that last year was a bit of a tumultuous time for both shoppers and brands, with being in the height of the pandemic. This year, people are gaining a bit more confidence with in-store shopping, and brands aren't necessarily facing the same lack of footfall in stores that, had been experienced last year. So when you consider that and you're thinking about this upcoming holiday season, how are you thinking about merging the experiences for customers between the digital shopping experience and the physical shopping experience in store?
That's the $1 million question, right?
Yes. And you've got it.
I'd say a few things. I think, you can't shoehorn anyone into a channel anymore. Who knows where they're going to shop? So that's for sure. The omni-channel customers, they can decide to shop online. They can decide to go in store. That's fine. I think we'll have to give them options. Again, it's. But I'm going to rewind and I'm going to say something. I think that the success at the peak season is pretty much built and decided ahead of the peak season. Mm-hmm. Because the way I see things, if you want to be on the customer radar, then whatever you tell them, I think it's 2 steps. There's what you tell them then, but it's how you prepare that moment. And actually, if you don't have a proper CRM strategy and a proper content strategy leading up to the peak, there's a very little chance that you're going to be as a brand on their radar when comes that moment, which is absolutely overwhelming. But everyone, shooting ideas, gift offers, it's like crazy. So my view on it is, you want to create that relationship with the brand beforehand, so that they get used to interacting and engaging with you, because the content you send them is relevant, it's personalized, it makes sense, it's exciting. So you're kind of like, oh, that's a Clarins email, I'm going to click on it, people, human beings are love habits, 21, we say, 21-day habit or 21 times. So I think if they open 21 emails, you're pretty sure that they're going to open, the ones during peak season. So in that sense, I think the whole preparation and getting them to be used to interacting with your brand is the work that you do beforehand. Then comes peak season, to answer your question. Yes, I think they're gonna be interacting with you because they know it's relevant. But what you're going to do is give them options. So you still be relevant with whatever product they've shopped, be it online or offline. You're going to propose content that is relevant but not based on the threshold that they usually spend. You're going to recommend to maybe interact and ask questions in store, and recommend their nearest stockist of the brand. So again, it's not saying this is the offer, this is what you need to get. It's okay, this is what the brand has to offer, and these are the ways you can interact with the brand, and this is where you can find us and this is where we can support. And I think a very interesting feature that we like using is the poll. I call it the polling system. I don't know how you call it a movable ink, but you know, when you can ask that question, what do you think is the best gift to offer? And you have 3 nice coffrets. You're gonna be, oh, I love that one, you know, and then you're like, oh, I didn't know about that one. I didn't know about that one. So you create the interact. So they interact with you. So as a brand, you're kind of like, oh, okay, so we know that's a winner that we need to push. So for people who are, you know, not have a lower chance to convert, let's push that one. It seems to be a winner. But at the same time, for those guys, they're kind of like, oh, I'm going to look at that one. So again, it's making sure that we work on those little tweaks and tricks to make sure that we keep them excited. And maybe there's some that are exclusive to a store. Okay, that's your option. You go to store. That one's exclusive to online. Okay, you'll get it online. The rest you can get anywhere. Yeah. So I think it will be less siloed this year and more open and give the consumer the choice. But again, you can only give them the choice if they interact with you, and that's the work you did beforehand.
Completely. I think it's such a important and interesting point that really the preparation for holiday is months in advance of it. Like you're mentioning building that relationship with your users, engaging them with relevant content, and I think very key, giving them that channel choice and truly being omni-channel. Another point that you brought up that I would like to dive a little bit deeper into is you mentioned that obviously planning for holidays happens well ahead of holidays. And I think a recurring theme that I'm hearing from a lot of clients within the industry is that this is an especially difficult holiday season to plan for, because a lot of what was planned is based on the previous year. And we know that was a pretty unprecedented time, to use that buzzword. So how are you approaching going about budgeting and even forecasting for this current year and beyond? Are there any things that are, you know, like really keeping you and the team up at night when you're prepping for this, again, very unique holiday season? Okay, so I use my crystal ball. Yes. I think that's the thing that works the best. The special one. To answer your question, well, how do I budget? Well, I have assumptions. You know, they could be equally true. So you know, okay. Well, let's look at that one. I think going back to the customer is probably the answer on how to budget. So I'm keen to look, to be honest, and I've been starting to do that, more understanding the behavior year to date of our newly acquired customers. How do they behave? How can I project that? Is this a behavior that is different from what we saw last year? And therefore, can I assume that maybe, you know, this is going to stay, and therefore, based on their frequency and AOV and then maybe that seems to be realistic. So I'm trying to kind of link it back. Otherwise, you know, budgets are, well, we need to grow by X. Yeah, right. So at least having those kind of texts makes me a bit more realistic going forward. But when we prepared for 2021, seriously, like this. So what keeps me awake at night? I have no idea if we're going to do the budget at all. But I can't be, you know, I can't tell my team, you know, not sure it's feasible, not sure it's achievable. And I'm like, yeah, we can do it. Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, no, I have no idea. Because again, where are they going to shop? You know, last year they had hardly ever choice. Of course they came to us. But, you know, if I were them, you know, I'd be happy if everything's safe. You know, you want to go shopping for real. There's so much you want to buy online. You know, sometimes you just need a bit of interaction. So honestly, this year, question mark. I'm praying. That's what I'm doing. That was, I think the team, I haven't asked them what keeps them awake at night, but I'm pretty sure for the business team, that is pretty much the same. How we're going to make it, we're going to make it. If there's anything I could think of that keeps me awake at night. Yes, there is. It's absolutely not related to a webinar, but I can share it with you guys. For the first time in my career, I'm actually managing people who are not wired at all like me. So I'm, you know, my team is full of Gen Z, millennials, and I'm older than that. And, you know, and we just don't behave, think, react, work the same way.
And the first time, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to say touch wood. Let me touch wood there. For the first time, I've got full team. Everyone's there, everyone excited. They're brilliant. I'm super happy, really proud of them. And I'm thinking, will there still be around, come peak season? Because these guys, they don't want to be bored. They want to be excited. But, they don't want to work too much because work-life balance is important. So it's finding that right balance comes peak seasons where, we used to work crazy hours and stuff. And I'm like, are they going to be up for it? Maybe they will, but how is it going to be? Is there a shiny, new startup that's going to come and poach them before? Is there a big tech company with free meals, that's going to come and be like, oh, come this way? Again, is retail still exciting for these guys? And honestly, that's what keeps me up at night, like all year round, and not just season. So, but that's, again, that's a totally other subject. But
no, I think that's Yeah, I think it's really relevant. And I would guess that quite a few other people feel pretty similarly, I think, on both fronts in terms of having a bit of a question mark in terms of how this year is going to end, how holidays will perform. So I think that can probably be a reassuring sentiment that you're not the only person in that boat. It's very much what I'm hearing across the board. And I think in terms of what you bring up with, how you're approaching Clarins brand and kind of being shiny and new, I think what you guys are doing is very much that. You have such a customer-centric approach to your e-commerce strategy. You're building a tech stack and have a channel mix that is putting the customer first. And I think that's really exciting. But thank you for taking the time to chat with me, and I'll pass back over to Tom.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry,
I enjoyed that.
I've been sidelined, Tom, so go back on track.
Yeah, no worries. And I'm so glad you mentioned progressive polling. Some of my team, they are fed up with me talking about progressive polling because it's probably one of my most favorite use cases that we do. And just like you say, it's really interactive for customers. But what I really love about it is it allows customers to kind of choose the next content they see, and based on what they vote on or they select, the next content they see could be related to that. So I'm glad you mentioned that. That's cool. And there's so many great ideas already coming from this session. If you don't mind, there's a couple more questions that I wanted to ask just before we open it up to the audience. But for Emilie, for everyone in attendance today, what would be the key advice that you would give to any brand getting started with overhauling their digital marketing strategy? It's something we hear about a lot, and specifically two areas that I know brands are focused on is obviously CRM, but also loyalty. So I wondered if you could touch on that.
I can. I always can. CRM, I think I have a pretty definite view on it, so I'll share it. Loyalty, I'll give you my view as well. Okay, so CRM, I think the best way to start is growing your base. If you have to start somewhere, start with the base, because if you have 100 people that you can target, and a 3% click through, you only, basically you end up having 3 people on your site. Add your conversion rate to that. Basically, you don't go anywhere. So if you grow your base, 3% of a 30,000 of a 300,000 is exponentially way better. So I'd say that's the basics. You start with the lower part of the funnel. And then once you've got the right base, then you talk to them in a relevant way. So that's why you need, you need those 2 pillars. And again, I'm not paid to do your thing, but I do think that you guys, for me, are 2 really good pillars. It's like, I'm gonna do a little of a analogy with the double serum here. But so double serum, for those who don't know, best serum ever, #1 in the UK, really good if you haven't tried. So it's ingredients that are soluble in water, ingredients that are soluble in oil, and you can't mix them because they wouldn't live in the other one. But when you mix them up an application, then you've got all the best ingredients for anti-aging on your face. And it's a bit like what you have with you guys, because I've got Wunderkind that plays their part in recruiting and giving me really high prospects, like really active ones that are going to transform. And I've got Movable Ink, which enables me to talk to these guys in the best and the most efficient way. And I think when you've got that, you've got the best of both worlds. So to me, again, start there, then go there. And then if you've got the right partners, you'll have a magical recipe. For loyalty, I wish I had the answer, Tom, let's be clear. I think the days of, siloed programs are over. I mean, we have an online only loyalty program, but people don't understand that, because they shop everywhere. Why am I treated differently if I shop Clarins at Boots than if I shop Clarins on Clarins.com? So as retailers and brands were like, obviously, it's not the same margin. We don't do that, but it's because we have our business hats. But the customer, she's like, well, I'm buying Clarins, Boots, John Lewis, or selfriches.com. It's the same. They just don't see the difference. And I think we have, for once, and it's a buzzword, but be consumer centric for real when it comes to loyalty, and put yourself in the shoes of the customer and be like, okay, so that's how they see it. We're one brand. They don't see the difference. So we have to think loyalty in an omni-channel way. And I'm telling you this, I haven't nailed it at all. We're at the beginning of that reflection. It's going to be a long process, because I think the retail environment for brands like us is absolutely not ready for this. So, I mean, I'd be happy to say watch this space, but we're only at the beginning. But I think that loyalty to me needs to be rethought. But it's all of us, who need to rethink that. It's easier when you're your own retail brand with your own retail outlets. Then you do whatever you want. But the moment you have third-party retailers, department stores, it's just very different.
Yeah, absolutely. From my experience, loyalty is really hard to get right. And, I think consumers have changed, certainly over the last few years, where they almost expect to see content that's a bit more relevant and a bit more personalized to them. So, again, trying to bring that into loyalty is sometimes a little bit difficult. But final question, if you had to summarize, what would you say the key takeaways and learnings that Clarins have gained over everything that we've discussed? What are the key takeaways? What are the key learnings that you would share to anyone listening today?
Don't be afraid to mix different types of content. Again, we used to have our triggered series one way, our promotional emails, our business as usual, our new products. It's like, because it's not the same teams briefing the content, you kind of have everything separate. And I think it's just, don't be afraid to mix. Again, behavioral, promotional, everything needs to be intertwined, and just as long as it's the most relevant content for the user that's going to receive it, that's what's the most important. I think it's, don't be afraid, mix and match, and most of all, try. I think test and try is the best thing we've done. I push my team and I keep telling them, it's fine, try, we'll see. If it works, great. If it doesn't, fine, we'll move and try something else. So I think you only find the right recipe once you've, tested 100. So it's, again, Wunderkind, I was like, don't know these guys, let's try that, seems like clever. Wunderkind, same, okay, does it really do what it does? You just try. Don't be afraid to fail, I think. That's what I'd say.
I think that's so true. Well, look, thank you so much, Emilie and Lindsay. I think personalization and automation have become buzzwords for marketers, and especially in email. But from working with all the brands that we do and working with Clarins, we do know for sure that if brands can get it right, they see huge lifts in click rates, conversion rates, average order values, and there's a lot of automation benefits as well from being able to streamline a lot of this stuff. So it's been super valuable going through all of that. I want to open it up for questions now. We'll try and get through as many as we can. I'm conscious of time, but we're also happy to follow up after this session. If anyone wanted to send over some questions that we can answer, or if you ever wanted to jump on a call with ourselves or Wunderkind, then we're more than happy to do that and have a chat, so just let us know. So let's look at what questions we've got coming through. I can see quite a lot for you here, Emilie, non-surprisingly. So the first one I can see here is, with everyone being so uncertain, how do you feel confident putting spend into specific channels? And how can you make those reliable when you're planning?
Okay, the safest place to put your money on is your own channels, I think. Because media, there's so much, and you spend fortunes. Again, it's not worth it. PPC, the moment you go below the ROI that you've set up, you need to stop. So there's one, I think, CRM, to be honest, the emails, direct mail, SMS, those communications until it's pretty elastic. So I think you can really invest in those because it's hardly ever too much. So I think that's the most flexible and elastic media that you can use, and I think it's one of the cheapest as well. So that's where I would put my money on.
And it's amazing how it's all changed, from even just 10 years ago. Brands used to spend millions and millions on TV advertising, not with the intention that you were going to see the advert and go and buy something straight away, but just because as people were growing up, you had certain brands that were instilled in your head. So when you did need to buy certain products, they were the first ones that came in. So I think now there's a much more direct route to customers, and of course, your own channel is going to be the best. We've talked. There's so many different ways to personalize. And one of the questions we've had is, what has been the most efficient way for you to personalize?
Okay, if most efficient means best conversion, we need to take a definition. So I'll assume, guys, that's what you mean. I'd say product personalization. I'd say two things. Name personalization, because you do see a difference in opening rate when the name is in the subject line. So that's no surprise there. And two, product personalization, because if you feature products that people have either previously purchased or browsed, the conversion is much higher. So I'd start there. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And I think we've got time for one more. So let me throw one more at you, Emilie. I'm sorry, but we're firing questions at you here. In the spirit of a fireside chat, I guess that's what we're going to do, right? But discounts, and I'm always talking to retailers who are deciding on discounts. And I wondered for you, what is the role of discounts in this upcoming holiday season?
Okay. Personally, I'm going to try to avoid discounts as much as I can, because I think it doesn't serve the brand. It destroys the brand. Some retail partners just play that game. It's a vicious circle, because then you need to anniversarize. You do that one day, the next year you have a big haul. And I mean, I got my fingers trapped in that one. Like we have this summer, I'm not going to tell you which day, but there is a weekend which is always has discounts for Clarins. And I can't not do it. So imagine if I keep throwing this, then I end up being a brand that is continually discounted. And I do think that it's a very short-term vision, but it doesn't serve anyone long-term. So I'd say I'll stick to whatever is required. So the basic, of course, is always a discount for Black Friday, but I really hope that I will not be in a position where I have no choice but doing that, because I'm pretty sure there's always another solution. And again, added value is always better than a discount. And that's our position as a brand.
Makes total sense. And the problem with kind of these discount events, and they're great and everybody partakes in them, is, especially with retail, it kind of creates other challenges. So, if you think about products, for example, things get out of stock really quickly. You send out emails in the morning with great deals for that day, and by the time customers actually engage with them and go on to try and purchase, stock levels can be a real issue. So that's something we work with our clients on a lot. But I do think all of these sort of discounts and deal of the days and Black Fridays, of course, they do create some other issues for retailers. So
I must say, Tom, we do use that feature for Black Friday because our gifts are usually selling out. So we make sure that there's always a backup. So if you open the email and the gift is gone, you see something else. We do that. I must admit,
that's stock switch around. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, look, we're up on time, but I want to finish by saying thank you again to Lindsay at Wunderkind for joining this session. And of course, a massive thank you to Emilie for providing such great content. It was nice that we got a visit from Siri as well. That was a nice surprise. But as a reminder to everyone who's watching this, this is being recorded, so you'll be able to access the whole session on demand. We'll send it out afterwards over the next day or two. And feel free to share with any of your colleagues too if you feel they could get something from this. But for the last time, thank you again for everyone that's joined, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, everyone, especially Emilie.
Thanks, Emilie.